Hey guys, welcome back to Daska Discusses. Well, it's not too long to go till episode 9 comes out. Rise of Skywalker. Well, I've got 2 more films to review on my channel from the Star Wars saga, and they are The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. So let's do this. Let's start off with The Force Awakens. Well, look, back then when it came out, I remember vividly being with a whole bunch of friends, going midnight, being really pumped for it, thinking, what are they going to bring to us? What's J.J. Abrams going to actually do here? What's going to happen? How are they going to fill this? How are they going to fill in the story of what actually happened? Now, with Force Awakens, what can I say? I mean, you've got this new protagonist, Rey. We're still introduced to we introduced to some new characters like Poe and Finn, and you've got a new antagonist, Kylo Ren. Adam Driver plays a really good role in it. You meet Maz Kanata. You still see Han Solo, Chewie, R2. At the end. 3PO, there's still, Princess Leia as well. There's still a lot of good things about The Force Awakens, right? Now, at the time I watched it, I remember I came out, I was pretty happy with how things went. I think upon the second and third viewing, things started to, a few cracks began to emerge. Now, by cracks, I meant that, the word around back then was it's a soft reboot, etc. The same thing happens in A New Hope, yes. In a way, Starkiller Base, I get it. Death Star, I get it. Rey's on a desert planet. All this kind of stuff happens that are really reminiscent of A New Hope. What really annoyed me wasn't that, it was more the fact that the way they used Luke Skywalker, how at the end of the film, he's literally in it for 30 seconds, so that was the one annoying gripe I had. How Kylo Ren was introduced and Snoke was actually interesting, I remember. I thought the storyline worked well, it was a good soft reboot of what they needed to do. J.J. Abrams had a job to do for Disney. It was the first time they're doing something like this. Episode 7, it's pretty huge for Disney to do something. And they came out and they made The Force Awakens, and then they built their Star Wars world, and basically they had to make sure that this was accessible for everyone, right? So, in a way, it's still a great film. I can put it on and watch it now, and it doesn't actually bother me too much, right? The whole thing about how there's some bits that are really reminiscent of New Hope and Empire, and even Jedi to some extent. But the amount of hate that it's gotten, I don't think it deserves it too much, really. The only thing that really annoyed me in it was the fact that, this whole stupid thing about Mary Sue's and, is Rey a Mary Sue? I don't really care. It doesn't bother me, but it did annoy me how she knew how to do a lot of things without any kind of backstory, and I thought, okay, well maybe in the next one they'll get to that. Still, we'll talk about The Last Jedi later, but that was the only annoying thing, how everything just went right for our key character. I thought Finn's character was okay as well. The way they progressed that, being a stormtrooper, etc. You got to actually see what happens behind, the lines of the Resistance. The First Order, sorry. And that was interesting how they did that, how there was no more Empire, it's the First Order and it's a Resistance. Now before we had the Rebel Alliance and the Empire. I think Kylo Ren and that whole story of him being Han Solo's son, and he's fighting these feelings that he's got in him. I thought that was really good. They did some really good things in Force Awakens. And Kylo Ren, I don't care what anyone says, I thought he's a pretty good, he plays the role really well, and it was a good addition to the film. And to see some sort of character like him, and spoilers, we all know what happens at the end of the film when he finally is face to face with his father. And that was where I'm going to get to my next point, where I felt that spoilers, the death of Han Solo was kind of really underdone. I know Kylo Ren kills him and he falls down, and then Chewie kind of shoots at him, which is really emotional scene, and then he gets away, and I just think that, it just didn't really do it for me. It would have been better if they did something else somehow. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I just felt such a key character like Han Solo just getting wiped out like that and then just forgotten was just, I don't know, it was kind of it's the reality is probably Disney were listen, we need to have all these newer characters, so let's get rid of the old ones in a way. Now, hopefully they don't get rid of Chewie or anything like that in the new film, because I'll lose it completely. Got a feeling that someone else is going to cop it. Now I'm thinking it's 3PO by looking at, I've only seen one full trailer and I've seen a split second of another, and 3PO saying something I'm doing this for my friends or something like that for the new film. Maybe he's gonna die, or maybe he's gonna shut down or something like that. Who knows? But let's wrap up Force Awakens. The other little thing which I thought they could have done better, and many people have said this as well, is Captain Phasma. Underdone, and even more so in The Last Jedi, which we'll get to as well. But she looked amazing, like, you know, Captain Phasma looked amazing with the armor and all that. But again, very underwritten character. That whole Starkiller base fight scene at the end, cut to, you know, the lightsaber duel in the forest, that was actually really well done. The lightsaber duel was really cool, and a lot of people are like, how does she know how to use a lightsaber against Kylo Ren, who's meant to be, you know, trained? Let's not forget that he was injured as well, and she's got some sort of powers or not powers, but she's got some sort of connection to the Force. So I didn't mind how she did all that in the end there, and didn't really bother me that last fight sequence. Even Finn getting sliced up the back, I'm like, wow, okay, this is pretty full on. What are they going to do with that? Again, the way Last Jedi comes around, nothing. So for Force Awakens, I'm going to give you guys, well, I've got written here the older ratings from all the trilogy, but we'll go through it at the end from like all the films so far, what I'm rating them. So for Force Awakens, I think I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10 for me for Force Awakens. It was a solid, soft reboot with some little cracks, but still, it made me smile at points, and a 7.5 for me for Force Awakens. Now let's talk about The Last Jedi. Well, talking about The Last Jedi, and ironically I've got this cup that was given to me for a present during that year for Christmas. I still drink out of it, even though I was pretty disgusted with The Last Jedi. Now, there is a lot of hate out there for The Last Jedi, and you know what? I can see why, but there's some people out there that really enjoyed it. Fair enough, whatever, but I think Rian Johnson really missed the mark completely with it. Now, I'm just going to be repeating a lot of what people had gripes with, but I'm not going to repeat it because you all know what the problems are. You know, the problems are pretty full on with the Last Jedi, okay? One, the biggest issue I had was just the way they went around telling Luke's story, his progression. You know, we had nothing in Force Awakens. You know, you got that last sequence, or like, okay, cool, maybe in Last Jedi they'll do something with it, but the way Luke goes about his character, it's really not of Luke. And I find it confusing how in Force Awakens they say that, you know, Luke gave him part of the map in case, you know, the galaxy needed him, yet when he gets there he wants to die, all this kind of stuff, and he doesn't want to help. Yes, I know there's probably answers out there, and that's why I'm not getting into a big debate on here with all these Star Wars gurus. I'm a Star Wars fan. Okay, I don't know, I haven't read all the books, right? I don't read all the comics either. But all I know is that Empire Strikes Back is my favourite film of all time. But I saw Last Jedi twice at the cinemas, and first time was at midnight, and I remember walking out. I remember halfway through, you know, you can pick a lot of scenes that really annoyed me. You know, Princess Leia floating through space. Okay. I'm like, at the time that didn't bother me too much. What really bothered me was, I'm not picking on Rose as the actress herself, but her subplot with Finn, the code breaker, getting to that Canto Bight, the casino planet. I was watching it, and all the stuff when they go through the casino, they smash everything down, and those whatever horses, whatever you want to call them, run through and destroy everything. I'm just like, am I watching this, or am I watching some sort of episode 2 kind of rip-off slash... I don't know what I was watching at that point, and I think that lost me as well. I liked how Kylo Ren and Rey worked, and how they could communicate through the Force. A lot of people didn't like that, and I guarantee you they'll be using a lot of that kind of thing where they can see each other through the Force in the next film. I didn't mind that story progression. It was the Rose and Finn subplot that killed it for me. And then, well, when we get to Snoke, spoilers again, you're thinking, okay, well, we finally meet him, that's pretty cool, looks pretty creepy as well. And then when Rey goes to meet him and Kylo Ren's there, and he can read what Kylo's thinking, his mind, and he's turning the lightsaber, and he's like, okay, cool, well, what's going to happen here? He's going to kill Rey, I doubt it. And he ends up killing his own master. I'm just like, well, so we've taken this whole thing of Snoke and we've built him up to just kill him off. Okay, maybe there's some sort of thing that I'm missing. Is he going to like regenerate because he's got all their scars or something? No, he's literally dead. And then Kylo's like, you know, join me, we'll run the galaxy. And then Rey says no. And I'm like, so we've just done all this kind of like communicating for nothing, and we've lost Snoke. it's just a lot of gaps happening here. Just a lot of major plot points that just don't do it for me. And then I'm gonna keep going on about Rose, but then when it gets to the last sequence where we're there and Finn and you've got the Resistance fighting against the First Order, and then they're all lining up on that planet. Like people call it Hoth. It's not, but they're coming towards them, and then Finn's got his little spaceship that's all ready to die. Was ready to die for the Resistance. There's the big weapon again, whatever it's called. Again, people are saying it's another Death Star weapon, but it's flying towards it. Rose cuts him off and smashes him, nearly kills him. He goes over to her in this whole wreckage after trying to sacrifice himself, which would have been an amazing kind of, bad for the the trilogy that is, but it was just the most ridiculous part and the most awkward thing to watch. I'm sorry, was Rose saying, I saved you, and the only thing that's going to save us is love, and then she gives him this kiss that's just so awkward. And I was like, at that point, I'm like, okay, what are we doing here? What am I watching? How could I even forget? Sorry. How could I even forget the Poe Dameron other subplot with that general, what's her name? The lady from Jurassic Park. I can't even remember her name in the film. That's how much I cared about her. That whole thing about, let's talk about the Resistance trying to get away from the First Order, which that's how the movie starts. That whole subplot there with Poe trying to ask about what's going to happen, and then the general saying, you don't know what you're talking about, you're all the same, you think you're a pilot, your pilot's all the same, This whole kind of I'm not saying it's all gender based, but obviously Disney were going for that kind of ideology with gender and veganism. I don't know, there's some really weird parts, and animal cruelty, I get that, and weapons and making money off weapons. There's a lot of different ideologies in this film that are in there, but that one there, when she, there's a mutiny, and then Poe Dameron, it's just dumb, and then she decides to take control of the spaceship and then light speed into the Resistance Star Destroyer, you know what I'm talking about. And I'm just like, okay, pretty awesome scene. And I'm like, we go on about it, but if that is possible, why didn't we see any of this in other Star Wars films? Which really annoyed me. It was an amazing thing to do, she splits it in half, and it looked amazing, but that whole thing was just dumb to me. And then going on to the last bit. Well, then you get to, hang on. Then you get the last bit with Luke, who shows up, and Kylo Ren goes down to meet him, after they've shot the blasters at him, and he doesn't actually die. He goes down, and then looks a lot younger, pulls out the lightsaber, which is blue, and he looks younger, and I'm like, okay, brand new lightsaber. We did just see it get destroyed by Rey and Kylo, which was interesting. And then I remember vividly thinking this when they were there, and then there was a scene that they were on that planet there, on that salt. And I remember a scene before where the guy flicks it up and he says, it's salt, and it turns red. So the whole ground turns red when it's disturbed. And I remember before, the big reveal at the end about Luke not actually being there, being like a projection of himself. I remember when he moves his feet and nothing happens, I didn't think, it's a projection. I'm just thinking, hang on a minute. If that guy there touched it and all this stuff is all red and all the sand's flying up, why at this point, when Luke moves his foot, why doesn't that happen? I remember thinking, that's weird. Why is that? I didn't think anything about it, but I'm just like, okay, something's definitely up here. And what would have been really cool with that? It would have been just cool if basically he was actually there, because we find out he's a projection of himself, or he's astral projecting or whatever, and he's still on his planet there in seclusion, and he ends up just dying. He just becomes one with the Force, I guess you could say. Now, I liked how he was looking at the sunsets, and the binary sunset theme came up, and his robes came down, which is really cool. I just think it would have been awesome if Luke was actually there. I know it's so cliche, but imagine, we see a shot of his X-Wing before that, and we see that, it would have been cool if he lifted it up, and he actually flew there, got out, and actually fought him, and then did what Obi-Wan did, just stopped and just like gave up. That would have been an more interesting kind of ending, I thought, as well. Just another side note on Rey's development. Yet another problem with The Last Jedi was that as well, is that we don't actually find out any more information about Rey. More than the only thing we find out is that she's really powerful with the Force and can do all sorts of things now, again. And she's really powerful, lifting the rocks and doing all sorts of things, but we don't know where she's from, who her parents are. We've got to find that out. There's nothing. There's literally not a lot given to the audience in this film, and there's just too many bad points for me personally. Now, there's people that love it, there's people that really hate it. I don't really hate The Last Jedi, but when I bought it on Blu-ray, I literally could probably have watched it 1.5 times. The first time, watched it and I was cringing at some parts, and then I tried to watch it again months later, and I couldn't do it. It's just one of those things where it just doesn't do it for me, and it doesn't feel right. A lot of these scenes just don't add up, they don't move well, and that's kind of put me in this mood for The Rise of Skywalker that, well, I kind of feel like it's like, oh well, what are they going to do now? What are they going to stuff up now? And I shouldn't be having that feeling as a Star Wars fan. You should be like pretty pumped, and it's only like under 2 weeks away, where it's like, okay, pretty pumped for this movie, yet I'm worried about what's going to happen. The only good thing you could say is maybe J.J. Abrams is going to come, he's back in the directing chair, and maybe he's got some sort of different vision that we don't know about. But I'll be there at midnight for The Rise of Skywalker, I'll tell you that. And it's a shame that I feel like this about The Rise of Skywalker, but I'm not going to let it cloud my judgment for that. The Last Jedi has happened, and the rating I'll give The Last Jedi is a 5.5 out of 10. Now, in terms of where they're all ranked, and here you go, guys, I'm going to give you my rankings for all the films, okay? So, Episode 1, Phantom Menace, I gave it a 6 out of 10. Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, 4.5 out of 10. Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, 7.5. A New Hope, 8.5. Empire Strikes Back, 10 out of 10. Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, 8 out of 10. Force Awakens, 7.5. And The Last Jedi, 5.5 out of 10. Well, it's been a lot of videos on this channel for Star Wars, and I'm glad I finally got through the whole Skywalker saga of films. Let me know what you thought of my rankings, guys, in the comments below. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Comment, like I just said, about what you thought. And subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys on the next time on Daska Discusses. Boom!